Title Update 6 just dropped, which means we are back with another edition of my realistic slider sets. The first Frost update brought with it some welcome changes to career mode, including some additions to the player roles and tactical visions, as well as the ability for players to now earn playstyles and playstyle pluses. The update also made a number of changes and improvements to the gameplay, which is usually a worrying sign for the slider sets. However, since EA made the switch from FIFA to FC, the gameplay has been far more stable. It used to be the case that every single little update, whether it addressed the gameplay or not, would absolutely ruin your slider sets. But that hasn't been the case. Even the patches that have addressed gameplay really haven't prompted the need for significant changes to the sliders. And though we're not making significant changes to any of the values today, that doesn't mean that there aren't a couple of tweaks that we can make in the wake of Title Update 6 to refine the gameplay and get it even more smooth and even more realistic. So a couple of brief notes before we get started. The first is that is the goal of this particular slider set, to get the gameplay as realistic as possible. We do try and balance that with enjoyment as well, of course, since we are playing a video game, but realism is the primary goal. The second thing to note is that the standard slider set that I'll show you first is designed for use on 10-minute halves, legendary difficulty, and with full manual controls. However, you can adjust the difficulty to world class or ultimate if you would prefer. I wouldn't recommend ultimate because it makes everyone on the CPU team a 99 overall, and it's not great for realism, but you can play on ultimate if you want. And at the end of the video, I'll also include 3 modified slider sets. A harder set for those of you that need a bit more of a challenge, a shorter half set for those of you that don't want to play on 10-minute halves, and an assisted set for those of you that don't want to use full manual controls. In terms of the simulation settings, we have a number of similarities to the previous set. Sprint speed is the same for the user and the CPU at 40. Acceleration has been raised ever so slightly, so it's +1 for the user and for the CPU, going up to 49 and 47. These correspond to the opposite adjustments to pass speed and shot speed, which have been lowered ever so slightly. So overall, the game has slowed down ever so slightly, even though acceleration has actually been raised. So shot error is at 45 for the user and 55 for the CPU. Pass error is at 5 for the user and 50 for the CPU. Remember, this is designed for manual controls. The assisted set will have a much higher pass error. Shot speed is at 48 for the user now, and for the CPU it's down at 30. So these have each been lowered too. The same can be said for pass speed for the user. I believe this is also down to 42. Pass speed for the CPU though is the same at 40. Injuries, I still have them where they were in the previous set. 88 in terms of frequency, 35 in terms of severity. I'm still seeing a nice balance. I see a lot of people in the comments mentioning too many broken toes. I think you're just getting unlucky, because I still see broken toes with these particular values, but only a handful. That's actually not the most common injury that I see. So these, I think, are still working even after Title Update 6. Goalkeeper ability remains the same as well. That's 78 for the user, 32 for the CPU. Marking is the most significant change we have made for this particular set, I would say. That's been lowered from 70 down to 60. This gives a little bit more space in midfield, a little bit more freedom for players to, find those pockets of space to collect the ball. And the marking sliders combined with the run frequency and the line values provide the overall shape of the game, which I think is still in a good place with these slight tweaks after Title Update 6. So run frequency is at 65 for the user and at 99 for the CPU. This pairs with the build-up speed slider in the CPU sliders, which we'll get to in just a second. The line values remain the same from the previous set. 80 for line height, 35 for line length, and 48 for line width for both the user and the CPU. You'll want to drop the fullback positioning for the user down to 25, but keep it at the default 50 for the CPU. Power bar, as always, is personal preference. I find it most comfortable at 62. That's completely up to you to decide where you find it comfortable. This doesn't have a direct impact on the gameplay outside of the ability for you to play the passes that you are intending to play, again, based on where you find it most comfortable. And then the first touch control error we have balanced out once more. This has been at 5 for the user and 99 for the CPU. 99 for the user and 5 for the CPU at various points. We've balanced it out at the default 50-50 after title update 6. As for the CPU sliders, everything remains from the previous set, from the 4.1 version at the very least. So in terms of the CPU sliders, we've got tackle aggression at 99, we've got build up speed at 50, shot frequency at 58, first touch pass at 55, crossing at 65, dribble and skill move frequency at 50 each. I would recommend this custom set over dynamic or tactical, simply because you're guaranteed to get a realistic game. When you have variation in the values from game to game, it can result in some unrealistic, some undesired outcomes in terms of the CPU just keeping the ball for far too long. This is the biggest problem that I see people complaining about. The CPU just dribble back towards their own goal. They just pass the ball around their back line. They never try and break forward. You're probably on dynamic or tactical, and the build-up speed for that particular game you were playing was way down at 10. That's obviously going to be the case that the CPU will not build up through the lines. So I keep this at 50, and then combined with the CPU run frequency at 99, that creates the most realistic balance in terms of keeping possession, but also trying to create goal scoring opportunities. So here is the full set in its entirety. Feel free to pause the video and input the values. However, I will put them in the description down below as well. Now, again, that set is recommended for use on legendary difficulty, 10-minute halves, and using the full manual controls. However, if legendary is not enough of a challenge for you, but you don't want to go up to ultimate because of the 99 overall problem, try out the harder set first. So the harder set features some slightly different error and shot and pass speed values. The marking is slightly higher for the harder set, and the first touch control error is heavily in favor of the CPU. So this one should give you a bit more of a challenge. Probably the most impactful difference, though, is the acceleration is at 49 for the CPU as well as the user. If you don't want to use full manual controls and you prefer to play with the assists on, then this next set is for you. So the primary differences with the assisted version will be in the error value. Shot error up at 55 for the user, and pass error all the way up at 90. Because you're not making as many mistakes yourself with the manual controls, you do need those error values much higher, but there are a couple of other subtle differences as well. And whichever of those 3 sets you are using, you do want to use the standard CPU sliders. However, if you don't want to play on 10-minute halves and you prefer something more in the 4, 5, 6 minute range, you're going to need to change not only the simulation sliders, but those CPU sliders as well. So this is the short halves version. Again, all of the sets will be down in the description, but feel free to pause the video here. Marking is slightly slower on this particular set. Run frequency for the user is slightly higher. This is going to facilitate a bit more of an end-to-end game to accommodate the fewer opportunities thanks to the fewer game minutes that you'll be playing. And there are, again, some slight adjustments to the error, the speed values. Most importantly, though, you want a slightly different set of CPU sliders. So tackle aggression remains at 99, but you want build-up speed all the way up at 75, shot frequency at 65, first touch pass at 55, crossing at 65, dribble frequency at 55, and then skill move frequency at the default 50. So there you have it, version 5 of my realistic slider set. No matter how you like to play, hopefully there's something in here that works for you. And if you do want to see the sliders in action, check out my realistic Crystal Palace career mode that we currently have going on the channel. We're into season 3 now, having a really successful season so far, and hopefully that continues. But we do use these sliders for every single episode of the Crystal Palace career mode on the channel. If you want exclusive early access to episodes of the Crystal Palace career mode as well as future slider updates, then consider becoming a member of the channel for just $1.99 a month. And as always, let me know in the comments below how these sliders play for you. But that'll do it for this one. I hope to see you in the next one. Take it easy.